Let's proceed with the second plenary of ISOT 2021 Adaptive Immunotherapy. May I invite the speaker, Dr. George T. John. He is inviting the chairpersons for this plenary session, Dr. C.M. Tyagarajan, Dr. Rajesh R. Nair, and Dr. K.P. Jayakumar. Over to the chairpersons.
I welcome my friend George John. We had close association with him when he was head of the Department of Nephrology, CMC Vellore. He has been a very academically interested person doing a lot of good work in CMC. And he just like that, he left CMC and now he is in Australia. It's a great pleasure. George T. John, who has always been interested in immunotherapy, immunomodulation, drug dosage and levels. And I am very keen to listen to George John about immunomodulation in transplantation. Welcome, George T. John.
Thank you, Dr. CMT, for the kind introduction. And waves of nostalgia sweep over me with friends across the seas now.
Interrupt you. Sir, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Can you switch to slideshow mode, sir? It is not, the slide is not completely visible. Presentation mode. Now it's fine. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Adaptive immunotherapy or cell-based therapy means about the same thing. And renal transplantation is one of the later entrants into this exciting new field for reasons I'll explain soon. This talk is, there has to be a bit on history because lots have gone on from the 1900s to let us be where we are today. And the next panel would be about immune modulation rather than tolerance, because tolerance means there is no immunosuppression but continuing rejection-free existence of the graft. And we would talk
Dr.
about
George, sir, your
Hello?
audio is not clear. Could you approach the microphone a little bit more?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Hello?
yes, sir. Now it is clear.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
will talk about T regulatory cells, tolerogenic dendritic cells, and the mesenchymal stromal or stem cells. I would not be touching upon macrophage regulatory cells and B reg cells. The last I mentioned, Dr. Trivedi had a couple of publications on. And I must mention that PGI Chandigarh has a publication on mesenchymal stem cell therapy. Most of us who practiced in 80s used third-party transfusion to weed out the likely sensitized recipients who are likely to be hyper-responsive. That has been our introduction to cell-based therapy. That's significantly changed now. And thirdly, post-transplant infections, particularly the resistant infections. How can you use cell-based therapy? If cell-based therapy is going to be useful, how can you generate cell lines and how can you bank third-party cell lines and how can you have automated commercial platforms which we can use for wider application? The initial experiment started in extreme situations of bone marrow transplant immunosuppression, then on to solid organ transplantation, particularly with heart and lung. And now we are finding our way through to kidney transplantation. Cells were initially collected from the recipients of grafts and later tentatively of donors who donated the grafts, and now moving on to third-party banked donor cells. And the type of cells that I use, I am partial to tolerogenic dendritic cells, and then to the other two. B regs may prove prophetic, as Dr. Trivedi has shown in early experiments. Very likely the great man was way before times, and therefore publication may have been difficult for the work that has happened. These two gentlemen fought over what immunity was. The one on the left, Paul Ehrlich proposed antibodies and ran with it. That was the fundamental theme for a long time, that antibodies determine immunity. While in 1900s, Dr. Metchnikoff first saw phagocytes in marine larvae, particularly of starfish, and that there is something called tolerance that has to be fetally acquired. And even later, George Hitchings and Gertrude, these two people who work with Wellcome Foundation, researched and came up with 6-mercaptopurine and the pro-drug Immura and azathioprine that we all got to use it. And you can see painted in yellow here, in red here, the various classes of inhibitors that we are able to use today, and the various antibodies that are available today for transplantation. So we have remained in the chemotherapy and antibody therapeutics so far, but I can see that the next generation, and within about 10 years, we will see a lot of cell-based therapeutics in renal transplantation. All of us are familiar with the CRISPR technology. That is a type of bacterial defense system against viruses, first shown in Streptococcus, where the RNA strand that it has, modulated with past infections and passed down genetically, will seek out the bacteriophage's DNA and cut it at areas where the guide RNA met a complementary DNA strand of the bacteriophage. This was first described and named by Francesco Mojica in Spain, but these two women who refined the technique for use clinically, Jennifer Doudna and Emmanuel Charpentier, shared the Nobel Prize in 2020. These have become huge commercial institutions now, as I will show you. The CRISPR-associated molecule is called the Cas molecule. So all put together, it's called CRISPR-Cas9. And shown in white here is the Cas molecule, which has got within it the guide RNA, which seeks out the viral target DNA. And now the guide RNA can be designed to seek out a desired area of the gene that can therefore be edited. On the left is a cartoon that depicts that editing. Cell products, CAR cell products are therefore approved by US FDA. I have mentioned all of them are for cancer. The cost, it is being sold for about $500,000 today, Kimra, for B-cell acute lymphatic leukemia. But the person who originated the manufacturing process, Carl June, has come out saying actually the cost is about $20,000 and not 500,000. It's marked up 250 times by companies, at least for now. Trouble with CAR cell therapy, there is difficulty in having persistence, terminal differentiation, and therefore dysfunction, or the tumor microenvironment might change the way the CAR cell products work in each individual. However, these are now mainstream therapy in all developed nations. And as you can see here, Tata Memorial Cancer Center, in collaboration with IIT, has already started clinical trials, and the cost would be about 15 lakhs. And Kiran Majumdar and others have founded a company called Immunil, where CAR cell therapy would be offered for $50,000. I'm sure the cost would come down fairly quickly. And Dr. Reddy's lab is in collaboration with a Chinese company to import technology. The Chinese are big in CAR cell therapy. Now, coming to adoptive cell therapy that we are talking about, what is adoptive about it? The innate and adaptive immunity limbs that we have, the T cells and B cells adapt to environmental stimuli and can adopt the signals that we transfer through cell lines and therefore produce tolerance, at least produce immune modulation. Here is an allograft that is poised and the winds from the sea blowing, and we know how hard it is to keep it going. If you increase immunosuppression, you need to increase immunosuppression to prevent rejection. And if you do increase immunosuppression, you have trouble with infections and cancer. So you tend to have a yo-yo with this apparently stable equilibrium. And this is something that has been the bane of all transplantologists, where clinical skill and providence is what helps the patient through. Adaptive cell therapy, adoptive cell therapy, if it produces tolerance, would keep away rejection, at the same time will block infections and cancer. So therefore, it looks like it is something that we would all deserve to have, and therefore is considered to be the holy grail. Are we close to it? At least to an extent. So operational transplant tolerance is when you have stopped immunosuppression and there is rejection-free allograft function. Of the 4 techniques that are possible, we are talking about adoptive cellular therapy. Co-stimulation blockade, as you know, has been used in plenty in the US, but the interest in that is to avoid CNI toxicity more than having enduring and stable tolerance. If you have a bone marrow transplant along with a kidney transplantation, obviously you have chimerism and tolerance, but that is a big price to pay. So what are the cell lines here? In brief, this is the bone marrow from which come out 2 cells, the hematopoietic stem cell and the mesenchymal stem cell. Hematopoietic stem cell gives off the granulocyte macrophage progenitor and the lymphoid progenitor. Mesenchymal stem cell does not, or stromal cell does not differentiate further. Granulocyte macrophage progenitor gives a monocyte, and monocyte subsequently gives the monocyte dendritic cell, which forms a tolerogenic dendritic cell. I'll talk about this particular cell line. I will not talk about the macrophage regulatory cell line. There is one trial in France going on this. The lymphoid progenitor produces NK cells, stops differentiating there, and the lymphocyte. The lymphocyte then produces naive T and B cells, and given appropriate environment, they become T regulatory cells and B regulatory cells. I mentioned Dr. Trivedi's experiments. I will not discuss in detail with B regulatory cells, and he harvested it from different sources. I'll speak about T regulatory cells and about mesenchymal stem cell treatment toward induction of tolerance or adoptive immunotherapy toward modifying immune system. Now, Tregs have been hard to find, and it is this Japanese scientist in Kyoto University who first defined this cell line, and then on, this has marched forwards in the last 10 odd years to great heights. While dendritic cells were again hard to find, and these were first defined by Dr. Steinman, a Canadian man, but worked in America in 1973. And these 3 who worked on dendritic cell function and characterized its culture and expansion shared the Nobel Prize, 50% to Dr. Steinman, and these 2 shared the other 50. Now, this is a complicated slide, but there are 4 sectors, as you can see, in different colors. This is about the Fox patient-derived cells, but expanded ex vivo, that is outside the body. And here's engineered Treg cells with CAR cell therapy. You change the DNA structure of Treg cells and make it do what one wishes to have done. And then these cell lines are expanded and then injected back into the immunosuppressed host. And the third is, again, you take lentiviral transduction, which is being done in India now. I am hearing through the grapevine, Christian Medical College Stem Cell has got permission for lentiviral transduction experiments. Or you may have FOXP3 induction via engineering of CD4 cells. After all, FOXP3 cells are CD4 cells. And with IL-10, they become stable and can be infused to provide tolerance. Dendritic cells are another group which they are myeloid cells from CD14, and they can be induced to grow with rapamycin, vitamin D3, TGF-beta. There are studies with that as well. So Tregs have got this signature, CD4, CD25, FOXP3. They are a CD4 T cell subset and are long-lived, dominant, and antigen-specific. They have been shown to be useful in GVHD after bone marrow transplantation, type 1 diabetes mellitus, and liver transplantation. And it's being studied quite seriously now in tolerance induction pathways. Treg appears to be in the center. These are part of adaptive immune system, and on the bridge between innate immunity and adaptive immunity sits the dendritic cell. I am more excited about this cell line than with this, but it may be a combination that finally would work. Treg is a calming cell line and tends to calm T effector cells by these cytokines. And they tend to have similar effect on certain ligands for B cell inhibition. They tend to produce perforin and granzyme B and cause apoptosis of T effector cells. They reduce neutrophil function, they reduce proliferation of natural killer cells, and they increase M2 phenotype of macrophages, which are regulatory in nature. So Treg seems to be the orchestrator of adaptive immunity, and the dendritic cell seems to have a modulatory effect on Treg and vice versa. Again, we have some claim to fame through Mini Sarwal and Chandran. They published the first paper that I can find on polyclonal regulatory T cell therapy for control of inflammation in kidney transplantation. Only 3 patients, but must have been very hard those days to get permission to do this particular study with a single Treg infusion autologous. That is from the patient, blood collected 2 weeks earlier, cells expanded and injected into patients with a deuterium tag. And they measured the deuterium tag and repeat biopsies to see what happened with CD45 common leukocyte antigen immunohistochemistry IHC staining. And they found, at least in 2 patients, that it did reduce inflammatory markers and it was safe. Patients who had subclinical rejection did not progress to full-blown clinical rejection or develop donor-specific antibody at 1 year. Here is a proof of concept study from Germany. They studied 11 patients. Very hard to get numbers from early studies because that is how the profile has been. They used FOXP3 Treg products, again derived from patients week -2 to week 1 and expanded, re-infused into patients and at different doses, as you can see, on day 7 after kidney transplantation, with stepwise tapering of triple immunosuppression to low tacrolimus monotherapy at week 48. They were tested at week 60, followed up for 3 years. And as you can see here, the trial patients did as well as the patients who were part of control. This was part of the one Treg consortium trial done in this particular German hospital. As you can see here, there has been a switch to monotherapy at 48 weeks, and patients have done fairly well. And the patients have been stable. It is safe and feasible to have Treg, natural Treg therapy. The ongoing clinical trials are many with autologous T cells, as you can see here. A large number of patients are being recruited for studies worldwide, and these are all about kidney and a few are about liver. So in summary, Treg therapy is currently applied to reduce dependency on immunosuppressive medicines after organ transplantation. If you are able to engineer these Tregs to affect certain molecules, you are likely to have much better results. So engineering the Tregs with chimeric antigen receptor technology I alluded to, there are trials currently going on. You may require multiple injections because of poor persistence, and you may require IL-2 priming for these patients. And curiously, IL-2 receptor blockers may not be used in situations where you wish to have T regulatory therapy. Coming to dendritic cell therapy, there are three types of dendritic cells in these transplants. Ischemia reperfusion injury evokes certain characteristics in dendritic cells, rejection-related dendritic cells, and tolerogenic dendritic cells. These have got different surface markers. CD11C seems to be a common marker, but not seen so well even on tolerogenic DCs. This is why these cells were difficult to study, and this is why I suppose people who persisted have been awarded as great contributors to science. So here is a dendritic cell. It tends to, in the previous slide, dendritic cell was a green one, which I said was a bridge. Here, dendritic cell in the center of the scheme of things, blocking T effector cells with deletion or starving them of tryptophan, or inducing FOXP3 T regulatory cells and therefore blocking effector cells, causing energy in them, promoting Treg cell expansion, and expanding its own population for tolerogenic antigen presenting cells. So to me, this is an exciting line. And DC precursors, as I showed earlier in the first slide, they may become anergic or they become immune competent depending on sufficient pro-inflammatory stimulation, having an angry red mature dendritic cell antigen presenter provoking T effector cells to fight the graft. On the other hand, here you have an anergic regulatory T cell which required subliminal stimulation along with the profound co-stimulatory molecule, vitamin D3, rapamycin, or steroids, along with IL-10. They produce tolerogenic DCs and promote Tregs. So here's the process, as I mentioned, CD14 monocytes. These are monocyte-derived cells. Somebody last year called these the pearl of immunotherapy. And these are called nature's adjuvants. They can present that antigen, or they can be tolerogenic, acting quite in the reverse. Here is the famous one study published in Lancet last year. Huge number of patients looked at over about 7 years, 104 vetted and divided into two groups. 38 got cell therapy in 7 lots in different centers across US, UK, and Europe, as I'll show you, using T regulatory cells, donor Tregs, autologous tolerogenic dendritic cell study, and even an MREG, which I have not discussed so far, in France. Here are the various countries where these studies have happened: in Germany, Oxford, San Francisco, Boston, Milan, and France. These are shown to be safe in renal transplantation, reduces viral infection, and they reduce the inflammatory state. The mesangial stem cells can be autologous or allogenic or third party, and they tend to have a calming effect on the cell lines, as I've shown here. And mesangial cells are easy to grow, but they need preconditioning with either hypoxia or gene modification, and they can live on for a long time. Germans have a lot of interest in this. They tend to be found in studies for the last 13 or 14 years. Important to recognize the contribution from PGI Chandigarh, Dr. Vivek Jha and company. They studied 4 patients with KTR who, for safety and for some reduction in inflammatory pathways. Here's another study using all autologous cell lines, early days, showing these lines were safe. And here is a large number of patients who are being currently inducted into mesenchymal stem cell study. You don't use IL-2 blockers. Instead, here in the Netherlands, they've used Campath and studied about 15 patients, if I remember right. And it is a safety study for 12 months, no rejection, graft loss on a single drug, lowering of tacrolimus, but they continued with everolimus and prednisolone. So I'm not very impressed with the effect of this particular study. So it is helpful, safe, comparable with conventional immunosuppression for safety, and immunosuppressive reduction is possible. For pathogen-specific lymphocyte therapy, one needs to select, expand, and gene modify, quality control, and reinfuse. This was first studied by CMV-specific cell clones by Dr. Greenberg and others in 91, quite some time ago. And subsequently, they published reconstitution of immunity against CMV in NEJM. Direct selection is what we have used. Patient has got T cells that respond to CMV. You can expand those cells and reinfuse. If you have CRISPR-Cas technology, you can knock off the tacrolimus receptor, and then the cells will not undergo apoptosis or death if infused back into a tacrolimus containing environment. One of my patients here, CMV active, all forms of therapy have failed, vaccine development phase, infusion, and undetectable CMV. EBV again causes post-transplant lymphoproliferative disorder. You have about 50-fold risk if patients have never encountered EBV before. You can make adaptive T cell therapy using this technology. Here are cytotoxic lymphocyte infusions and tumor regression in a lung transplant patient in the hospital where I consult. And here is a lymphoma of the brain, the lesions reducing, patient going into remission with allogenic adoptive immunotherapy. And we had recent experience first in Australia with BK virus nephropathy that was resistant to treatment. What we did was, here is the BKV count increasing despite all what we could do. And with infusion over 10 lots out here, the CMV count dropped. And as you can see, the SV40 stain decreased. SV40 stain decreasing after therapy. Adenovirus has been used as part of multiviral CT lymphocytes. You can also do similar technique with Aspergillus fumigatus. And this tends to clear infection. This experiment, this study happened in Sydney. 9 out of 10 bone marrow transplant patients cleared the infection. You can have all these activities put together, antiviral activity, glucocorticoid resistance with CRISPR-Cas technology, and antifungal activity put together into cell lines, and they are called Kerberos cell lines, meaning the feared hound that guarded the gates of hell in Greek mythology. So you can have experiments like this. This is the same thing that I was talking earlier from Sydney. 9 patients out of 11 cleared the pathogen. You can have similar experiments done on registries of T cells which are HLA type. So we can infuse those cell lines, engineered or otherwise, into patients who require either prophylaxis or treatment for viruses or other pathogens. So far, bacteria have not been addressed. So you can have donor cells from cord blood, and you can train those cells with transduction and other experiments to fight anti-CMV, EBV, adenovirus. And these were infused into about 12 patients who were having bone marrow transplantation. And these were successful in most patients. Can you produce these cell lines in large numbers? Chinese are getting very good at it. Some of these are American systems, but the floor space and money spent is much more with the Chinese. Isolate cells, select them, modify them, expand them, final formulation, and direct infusion of freeze and thaw for infusion later. We have covered a large area. We are able to start from the recognition of phagocytosis, chemotaxis, to multipathogen specific cell lines and automated commercial platforms. And it would be, I would guess, in about 10 years' time, these therapies would be available to us in India. Thank you.
Thank you, John sir, for that brilliant talk. You took us through the all aspects of adaptive immunotherapy, including the CD4, CD25, Tregs, the mesenchymal stem cells, the dendritic cells. So, can I ask you a question, sir? Can you hear me, sir? Hello?
Yeah, hello, I can hear you.
Yeah. Sir,
Yeah.
sir, I understand that there is a possibility of giving prophylactic adoptive T cells in stem cell transplant. Is it happening world over? Prophylactic?
It's a costly affair. People do it as part of trials. It is still not something that people can. Regulatory constraints are significant. Safety issues have been established, but still they are in trial format in most parts of the world. I'm talking about Sloan Kettering, Westmead, Princeton, our hospitals, Germany, France. Another 5 years, I'm sure it will be mainstream.
So, is there a possibility of giving the option of prophylactic again adoptive T cells in EBV positive situations so that we can avoid PTLD? What is your take on that? You touched upon that point.
Yeah, see, bone marrow transplant is an issue where, a situation where if they are EBV naive, the risk of having post-transplantation lymphoproliferative disorder would be quite significant. The risk with renal transplantation is small, so I would suspect if a patient is profoundly immunosuppressed or it's a post-transplantation lymphoma with the first transplant and you're doing a second transplant, this may become a reality. In lung transplants, particularly where the risk is quite high, that's where I find early application of adoptive immunotherapy. And strangely, in multiple sclerosis, my colleagues across the campus have shown EBV therapy seems to be curative. So there are a lot more applications beyond transplantation for this sort of treatment.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Dr. George, and special thanks to the chairpersons for chairing this plenary session.